that you never get everything you want all at once in Washington.
The Senate Intelligence Committee has not found any indication of collusion.
I'm not sure how to put it any clearer than I said it before. We have no factual evidence of collusion.
Infamous Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman guilty on all 10 counts.
It is highly likely he'll serve his mandatory life sentence in America's most secure prison, Supermax, in Colorado.
The much criticized Green New Deal is headed to the Senate floor for a vote.
I've noted with great interest the Green New Deal. Give everybody an opportunity to go on record.
For dogs and dog lovers, this is the Super Bowl.
His best is yours.
Wire Fox Terriers king again.
The studio, I didn't know exactly where we were with the camera.
It's so big. We love this studio. We've been here for
more than a year, and Brian got lost.
I got lost. I mean, Chris Chulo on the crane camera continues to surprise me with his ability to zoom in and out. Right, Chris?
That's all he's going to do. Zoom in and out.
That's it.
And he does
a big crane.
Yeah. All right. Our job then is, because we got a great production team, actually have things for you to hear and to talk about. And so here's our lead story once again today. It looks as if the budget border compromise could actually get a vote in the House tonight and then the Senate. But the thing is, the president hasn't signed off on it yet because he hasn't read it yet. They were still writing it up till last night. They know a lot of the basic parts, but the language, the legislative language, which can sometimes make or break a bill, was still being done last night.
The president says he wants to add things to the deal, so that's why he hasn't written off on it yet, but he does have until Friday to sign it once it is passed in the House and the Senate. He tweeted about it. He said, "I want to thank all Republicans for the work that you have done in dealing with the radical left on border security. Not an easy task, but the wall is being built and will be a great achievement and contributor toward life and safety within our country."
Senator Cornyn said, I rode back on Air Force One with him after his rally. And he looked at it as thin gruel, did the president. And what does the thin gruel look like? I've never had any, but I've heard it described. Here's what it sounds like. The Border Wall Security Agreement in its framework form, $1.375 billion for physical barriers. Remember, Nancy Pelosi said you could have 1.3, but nothing for a wall. That's changed. 55 miles of new fencing is the max, which basically adds up. Border Patrol may use any current design, which means the bollard fence, we could stop tunnels, and no cap on immigration, no cap on immigrants detained in the U.S., which is good. Path to reduce ICE detention beds, many people find disturbing. The president feels as though he could find supplemental money to get that over what he actually is right now, and improvements to the Border Patrol holding facilities, which works for everyone.
Well, the president said that Senator Shelby was hardworking, and Senator Shelby went on to say, this is just a down payment. He said, we were able to secure you some money.
Right. Keep in mind, the $5.7 billion figure, not from the president. It came from the Border Patrol and the experts in the administration. How much would you need to secure our border? And that was the minimum. They said, we want $5.7 billion to complete our top 5 priorities. Instead, they got this figure, which would give them the opportunity to work towards some. What will the president do? It sounds like he's going to wind up signing it because it is more money. However, as we said yesterday, he probably has something up his sleeve. If not declaring a national emergency, he could actually take the money. There are a couple of executive orders he could do. There are 2 or 3 laws in his favor without Congress. And Roy Blunt, the senator from the great state of Missouri yesterday, told the Washington Post.
He needs to make sure the message is you don't always get what you want. This is a compromise.
Anything that happens that solidifies and cements that effort as being taken and underway, the president can portray as a win, can always hold out the card of a declaration of a national emergency to get the rest of it built and so forth. If he signs this, he's going to have to make the case that you never get everything you want all at once. We got them off the zero. We're moving in the right direction. We're continuing to build the wall. Everybody is so out of their gourds on this because of their ongoing belief that Trump is some ogre, not capable, not an individual thinker, and they still don't know who the man is.
Well, he's not going anywhere. He's got at least 2 more years, and if he continues to run against the batch of people saying such extreme ideas, he's got a lot more than that.
Hold on. Nancy Pelosi says he doesn't have 2 more years. There's a good chance he's not even going to be in office.
No, that was Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. It was Elizabeth Warren. That's right.
Nancy Pelosi says, don't worry, I'm not going to impeach you. I guess that was their idea of a compromise. But keep in mind, the president has not spent the 2017 money yet. They are not sitting there with cranes idling, wondering where they're going to get the money. They right now are starting on about 30 to 40 miles worth of barrier. By the time they're done with that, they'll have another one, at minimum, 1.375.
Right.
By the time they're done with that, if they are in fact done, it's going to be September 30th when you have to go get more money, which is back to a compromise.
The best thing yesterday, though, I mean, you were talking about different ways to fund this wall. The president has something up his sleeve. Ted Cruz had a great idea yesterday.
Absolutely.
Remember, they're putting El Chapo away. He has a lot of money. Listen to this. Oh, it's actually a tweet. America's justice system prevailed today in convicting Joaquin Guzman Loera, a.k.a. El Chapo, on all 10 counts. U.S. prosecutors are seeking $14 billion in drug profits and other assets from El Chapo, which should go toward funding our wall to #secure the border. The act is called the El Chapo Act, which means ensuring lawful collection of hidden assets to provide order act. That's El Chapo spelled out.
What a good acronym.
Now,
so it's $14 billion. And if they were able to figure out how to do that, that
genius, right?
Ted Cruz said yesterday, using El Chapo's illicitly obtained fortune and not American taxpayer dollars would be an act of poetic justice and a common sense solution to securing the border.
The only problem is we don't know where all that money is. It's a matter of getting it, and then we'll see we can use it. Meanwhile, let's talk about 2020 for a second. Elizabeth Warren, of course, came off pretty inauthentic when she said, I got to get me a beer, and then finding out about her background wasn't actually correct since the 1980s.
She had a terrible rollout.
And she also continues to do questionable things like show up at an American Indian event yesterday, continuing to underline who are you and why are you here. Then Kamala Harris came out and gave a very impressive introductory look at me, I want to run for president. However, if you look at some of the things she's saying about giving insurance for everybody, destroying private insurance and giving Medicare for all, you wonder where that came from. Then she admits on a morning radio show that she smoked marijuana because she wanted to in college.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like
and I inhale. I did inhale.
Okay. I mean, was it in college? What were you listening to when you was high? What was on? What song was it?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah, definitely Snoop. Tupac, for sure.
What do you listen to now?
Really,
okay,
for
so
sure?
she was listening to Snoop and Tupac when she was in college. We took a look at the record and take a look at this. That was the appearance on the so-called world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club here in New York. She graduated from college at Howard in 1986. She finished law school in 1989. She was admitted to the State Bar of California in 1990. And then, in 1991, Tupac's first album came out. And in 1993, Snoop Dogg's first album was released. So there's a problem with the timeline.
So 7 years after she graduated from undergrad, Snoop Dogg's debut album was released. And 5 years after she graduated from undergrad, Tupac's album was released.
So she doesn't remember what she was listening to when she was smoking.
Right. I just don't know why. She's a scholar. Her career is on a fast trajectory. She should embrace it, go behind it. Whoever you are, you have to be that person, or it's not going to work. Did Donald Trump show you anything? For better or for worse, Donald Trump shows you exactly what he's doing every day and who he is. Meanwhile, let's take a look at who's leading the 2020 race so far. Some familiar names up top. The first two I've not even declared yet.
That's right. They have that in common. Joe Biden got 29% in this morning consult survey. More than 11,000 people were asked. And Bernie Sanders got 22%. But, yeah, like Brian said, they're not even in the race yet.
They aren't. Then you've got Kamala Harris at 13, Elizabeth Warren, Beto, and Amy Klobuchar, who was on with Brett last night. She's at 3%. They also looked at second choices. Okay, if you didn't vote for this person, and keep in mind, these were early voting states, people being asked the questions. The second choice, if you didn't vote for the person you just told us was your first choice, the number one, is Joe Biden. The number 2 is Bernie Sanders. Should not surprise you. Because when you look at name recognition, the top 2 names on the Democratic side are Joe and Bernie. So whatever the question was, Joe and Bernie, who both have not declared whether or not they're in, although
they're
Bernie
seriously
certainly is.
considering it.
Right, exactly. They are the top 2 choices of Democrats across the board.
I cannot see a scenario where Joe Biden doesn't get in. I think that's a layup.
I'm sure Democrats are pushing him, especially when you look at these numbers. I mean, Klobuchar getting 3%, but then he's up to, in some of the big states like Iowa and South Carolina and some of the ones that really can determine the race, he was up to like 33%.
Sure, but you know who's not? Barack Obama is not pushing his former running mate. I wonder why.
He probably would as soon as he gets in.
During the last time, 2016, he wanted Joe Biden to run instead of Hillary Clinton, and he pushed him. But Joe's son had died. He said, it's not time. Big question is now. Regarding everybody else at the back of the pack with those numbers, it's early. Yeah. We are still a year and a half out. So anything can happen.
Yeah, Joe Biden in his book, though, said that President Obama wasn't encouraging when he asked him at the end. 11 minutes after the hour, Jillian Mealy has what else is happening.
And you guys are always encouraging. I'll just throw that out there.
We do our best. Fully support you.
Thank you.
Glass half full.
Let's start you off with the Fox News alert right now and some serious news that we want to get to. An NY luncheon in D.C. Warren continues to face backlash about her claims that she is Native American, even after a DNA test revealed extremely small ties. Well, this king has a brand new crowning achievement, Best in Show. The Wire Fox Terrier taking first place at the Westminster Dog Show.
He's Best in Show.
Wire Fox Terrier.
King is the 15th Fox Terrier to win the New York City show. That's more than any other breed by far. And guess what? King will be here live in the 8 o'clock hour.
I love it. He looks like an old man. It's so cute.
I'm sure he did an all-nighter. You celebrate all night when you win that. Yeah, he's going to be exhausted.
It's a dog's life.
Yeah.
Dog will be here. Indeed. Jillian, thank you.
13 minutes after the top of the hour, one congressman and doctor who has delivered 5,000 babies has a message for Governor Andrew Cuomo. That congressman joins us live next.
Plus, he's being called the next Usain Bolt. Meet the 7-year-old sprinter leaving everyone in the dust.
A lawmaker and doctor who has delivered 5,000 babies is voicing opposition to New York's late-term abortion law, saying it's a danger to the mother and should be strongly condemned by all physicians. So while the legal lines between abortion rights and restrictions continue to blur, does New York's law demonstrate a complete disregard for life? Kansas Congressman Dr. Roger Marshall joins us now. Good morning to you, Dr. Marshall.
Good morning.
Good morning. I know that you're an OBGYN and serving our great country in Congress. We appreciate that. And we wanted to have you on because you wrote an op-ed strongly condemning this. Tell us why. What are the risks for the mom and the baby?
Well, I think nobody in America thinks that murdering a baby just minutes before delivery is right, that this is the most barbaric law that's been written in American history. But what no one is talking about is that this is actually very, very dangerous for moms, that moms are going to die from this procedure. You know, so as an obstetrician, I've delivered thousands of babies. And if I can make one thing clear, I've never done an abortion. But as an obstetrician, I have to take care of all those complications. So the later the pregnancy is, the later the abortion is done, the greater risk there is to the mom as well.
What are some of the complications? I know you wrote that it's inhumane, it's dangerous, it's unsafe, it results in the death of many mothers. What happens to a mom's body, to a woman's body, when she delivers or has an abortion that late?
You know, the most common complications that I saw as an obstetrician is, number one, the uterus was perforated during the procedure. When that uterus gets bigger, it's much easier to perforate. But the other complication, even more common, is just hemorrhaging. So what I would typically see is a woman in the emergency room in shock, hemorrhaging from this procedure, and we would have to rush them to the emergency room, and literally we would be fishing out pieces of the baby that they left behind or pieces of the placenta so that uterus cannot clamp down afterwards.
You write about how it's safer for you just to deliver the baby, and there's so many moms that want these babies that can't have children of their own. You write in the op-ed, you say mental health is listed as a reason to allow for late-term and partial birth abortions in the state of New York. You said that was part of the bill, but we've gotten a comment from the governor's office, Cuomo's office, and he says these comments are not only illegally incorrect, but are irresponsible. The Reproductive Health Act does not reference mental health, contrary to Congressman Marshall's blatantly false statement. Federal law and court decisions clearly outline the standard for health, which New York has adopted. We encourage him to actually read the law. What is your response?
Well, I think the governor should maybe walk in the shoes of an obstetrician for 20 years as well. I think that this is very mentally damaging to the patients, and I think he's a lawyer, not a physician. Maybe he should stick to being a lawyer.
All right, Congressman, thank you for being on with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. California's Governor Gavin Newsom slamming President Trump's border policies.
This border emergency is nothing more than a manufactured crisis, and California will not be part of this political theater.
Tomi Lahren says he cares more about illegals than he does American citizens, and she's going to join us next. Plus, Bill Gates says he is willing to pay more taxes, but he says Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's plan to tax the rich will not work.
All right, back with some international headlines by your request. President Trump will host the president of Colombia at the White House today. The leaders are expected to discuss the crisis yesterday. And Vice President Pence is on his way to Poland. Right now, he lands in just about an hour and will address the U.S. troops stationed around Warsaw today. The vice president will be in Europe for a week to discuss the Middle East and other international issues. Yeah, Poland's hosting a Middle East summit.
Meanwhile, yesterday, California's Governor Gavin Newsom gave his first State of the State address, and in it, he criticized President Trump's border policies.
Immigrants, both here legally and those without documentation, commit crime at a lower rate than native-born citizens. And those families, those women and children seeking asylum at the borders, are doing so legally. Those are the facts. This border emergency is nothing more than a manufactured crisis, and California will not be part of this political theater.
Here to react to that is Fox Nation host Tomi Lahren, who lives in the state of California. Good morning to you, Tomi.
Good morning. Lucky me. I have a wonderful governor similar to you guys there in New York.
We wanted to ask you about that. Do you think it's a manufactured crisis? What's your reaction to that? And he wants to pull those troops off the border, too.
So listen, Gavin is selectively ignorant to the issues of our own state, but here are the facts. We have over 2 million, probably far more, illegals living in the shadows in the state of California. And the Migration Policy Institute estimates that in the United States, there are about 820,000 convicted criminals who are unauthorized immigrants, nearly 85% of which are convicted of either a felony or a serious misdemeanor. So Gavin calls it a manufactured crisis, but I'd like to hear him say that to the family member's widow and 6-month-old son of California Police Corporal Ronald Singh, murdered by an illegal immigrant shortly after Christmas. But, you know, those aren't the kind of people that Gavin Newsom traditionally likes to talk to or about.
Well, yesterday he was talking about how during the last administration, Jerry Brown agreed with the administration. They said, okay, we're going to put 400 National Guard troops on our southern border, even though there's not a manufactured crisis, the new governor would say. But now he's pulling them back. Watch this.
This is pure politics, and so we're just not going to participate in it. And that's why we're announcing that of the roughly 360 folks out on the border, we'll keep 100 folks behind, primarily at ports of entry. The rest of our National Guard will go to more appropriate venues. Substantively, the issues related to preparing for the next fire season, address the issue of fire prevention.
How do you think, Tomi, the people of California feel knowing that there are 400 troops lighter at the southern border?
Well, I think if Californians would wake up, they would have never elected the guy. But, you know, here's the deal. He talks about what's appropriate for the National Guard to do. He is the governor of a border state. What is more appropriate than protecting and securing the border for Californians, for Americans? Because, remind you, this is not just a border problem, although we are greatly impacted. Illegal immigration and illegal border crossings, they affect the entirety of the United States. So for Gavin to say it's not appropriate is so tone deaf, it's dangerous, and this is why we can't put leaders like him in power, especially in a border state. It makes me infuriated, especially living in California, knowing what he's doing to this great state.
Yeah, too late, but the good news is, and I'm being sarcastic, you're going to get free health care for illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, so there's going to be even more flooding across the border.
Well, Well, absolutely. We are a magnet. And when Governor Gavin Newsom gets up there and he makes those speeches and he basically gives illegal immigration a gold star, of course it's going to be a magnet.
Well, there you go. All right. Tommy, we thank you very much for joining us. Check her out on foxnation.com. Tommy, thank you. The governor did say one thing yesterday that was true, although not probably good news to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and that is that $77 billion bullet train they were going to run between L.A. and San Francisco. Too expensive and can't do it fast enough. So he's essentially pulling the plug.
Right. So we might as well start on the one to Europe because that's going to be the only way we can get there.
I think they're working on the one to Hawaii first.
Okay.
Come on.
Right. You're right.
All right. Meanwhile, 628 here in New York City. What happened when a telephone scammer targeted a former CIA and FBI chief? Nothing good. We're going to tell you coming up.
Plus, a lot of people are upset about getting lower tax refunds, but are you actually making less money? Charles Payne has just got here in time, just up the steps.
Oh, Charles.
How does he do that?
Good morning to you.
Taxpayers are complaining as the average tax refund drops an average 8% from last year. But are you actually making less money?
Here to break it all down for you and what it means for your wallet, Charles Payne, host of Making Money with Charles Payne on the Fox Business Network. So, Charles, people look forward to their tax refund and getting back the money that they overpaid to the federal government.
Exactly. Here's the thing is, for the most part, the IRS is telling everyone that they just simply did not make the proper adjustments on their withholdings at the beginning of the year. So they've been making all of this money.
It's an IRS mistake.
Well, it's not necessarily their mistake.
Employer.
It's your employer or you. IRS actually put a lot of memos out. They even made it pretty easy to go on their website and figure it out. This is at the beginning of last year. Of course, most people didn't do that. So while people were obviously seeing fatter paychecks, they were still counting on that refund that they always got, which is interesting because you kind of hinted at it, that we would allow, the IRS to have like a $2,000 loan, our money, right? Hold on to it. Yeah, because we overpay. So people probably should consider making these adjustments anyway, unless you want to give the IRS $2 or $3 grand of your money to hold for a year. Maybe they can make the interest on it and you won't.
But here's the problem. There's certain things that have gone forever, and that is in these blue states, in Illinois, in New York, as well as Los Angeles, New Jersey, Los Angeles, as well as California, you can no longer write off state and local taxes.
Well, there's limits, right? With the SALT, the
10,000.
Yeah, right.
So that's gone.
That's gone. That's gone. And a lot of these states are complaining. And listen,
that's why Governor Cuomo was meeting with the president yesterday.
That's why he was meeting with the president. But, these states have put themselves in a bad predicament because they have taxed their residents. They've created these obligations. They've made these promises, and they need to find out some of the taxes that they can probably address rather than, going back to the government and asking someone in Mississippi, to subsidize a millionaire in New York City to subsidize their mortgage. It's ridiculous.
New York State should run more like Texas or run more like Florida.
Absolutely.
Well, after tax reform, we expected some of we all didn't know how this was going to shake out. So we're all kind of wondering. And come April, we'll probably be doing more and more stories like this. But let's talk about Bill Gates, because he does want to tax the rich. But he's saying Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez her idea of taxing 70% is too high. Listen to this.
The IRS shows the statistics for the top 400 people, the highest income, and the rate they pay. Anyway, you should look at that. It's about a 20% rate. So it has nothing to do with the 39.6 marginal ordinary income rate. So it's a misfocus. If you focus on that, you're missing the picture. I believe U.S. tax rates can be more progressive. Now, you finally have some politicians who are so extreme that I'd say, no, that's even beyond.
What are your thoughts?
Well, essentially what he's saying is going after income is really not wise anyway. By the way, the socialists say, hey, at one point in this country, we had a 91% tax rate like in the 1950s. You know what the effective federal tax rate was for the 1% back then, or those folks?
What?
16%.
Because of the loophole.
16%. If you added in state, local, federal, they only paid 40%. So you can throw these big numbers out there, and what Bill Gates was saying is that these folks, if they're rich, if they're that wealthy, they're going to find ways around it. Now, if you want to tax other things, have at it, but that's a dumb way to go about it. This is only going to backfire, and he's absolutely right. By the way, he went on to say in that same interview that our deficit, the idea that our deficit can keep growing because it's now $22 trillion is crazy talk. I thought that was amazing as well.
Absolutely crazy. Meanwhile, whenever you see Charles in the hall, generally he has a smile, but he's got a bigger smile these days, and maybe it's reflected in a brand new Gallup poll. 69% of Americans expect their finances to improve in the next year. That is a 16-year high. Charles, what are the facts behind that number? Why are people happy?
Jobs. Higher wages, higher wages, higher wages. And it's just, we were just talking about this whole tax snafu. Yeah. The real story, and I'm going to put the chart on, if you don't mind. I'll let people get my Twitter handle, CV Payne. After this hit, I want to put the chart up. People have to see how much wages have gone up since the tax plan went into place.
Blue collar faster than white collar.
Blue collar up 4 of the last 5 months, faster than white collar for the first time in over a decade. By the way, in the same Gallup poll, 50% have said that their finances improved last year. That's the first time they cracked 50% since the Great Recession.
How much more money are they making on average? Do you know that?
The percentages, well, it depends. The key is the percentage. Over 3% year over year. We had not seen that since 2009, but it was coming down.
Right.
Now we've had it 4 consecutive months. And, of course, the most important thing for me are the people who really never see a raise. I hadn't seen one in a long time. Their wages are outpacing those of their supervisors, at least the increases. And that is a phenomenal
Is it because they work for companies that are
story.
Successful and then their bosses are giving the money back to
Harder
them?
to find good people that get paid more.
Same tide lifts all ships. So the answer is yes. And it's also the job creation, right? When we get these job numbers in, you got to look at the composition of these jobs. Manufacturing jobs, for instance, those kind of jobs trigger 7 additional jobs in an economy. They're so powerful. Those are coming back. So it's the quality of the jobs that's really helping out, not just the overall jobs, but the fact that they're quality, high-paying jobs.
So we could find out that chart on C-Payne?
CV Payne.
CV Payne.
Yeah.
Okay. P-A-Y-N-E.
P-A-Y-N-E. That's right.
All right.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks a lot.
All right, 22 minutes before the top of the hour, and Jillian joins us with some news.
And that's right. Good morning. Following a number of stories, starting with this. The man accused of shooting and killing a Border Patrol agent in 2010 is convicted of first-degree murder. Eric Leo Osorio Arianes will be sentenced in April. He is one of 7 people charged in the killing of Agent Brian Terry in a shootout in Arizona. Terry's death exposed Operation Fast and Furious, a failed Obama-era program that put guns in the hands of criminals with the intention of tracking them into Mexico. An illegal immigrant is accused of killing his ex-girlfriend, stuffing her body in a suitcase and dumping it in the woods. Sources tell CBS News Javier da Silva is from Venezuela and overstayed his visa. According to court documents, he admits to dumping Valerie Reyes' body in Connecticut, but insists she died after falling on the floor and hitting her head. Da Silva is charged with kidnapping resulting in death. A phone scammer picks the wrong guy to mess with. Former CIA and FBI chief William Webster. The Jamaican scammer promised millions of dollars in prizes in exchange for wiring money to cover taxes. Webster tracked down his number and called back with the FBI listening in. The crook didn't know he was wanted until he was arrested in New York 3 years later. He's been sentenced to nearly 6 years in prison. A 7-year-old dubbed the next Usain Bolt speeds into record books. Check this out. Look at that. Is that insane or what? Rudolph Blaze Ingram smashing national track and field records in Florida. The social media star already gaining major attention with 300,000 followers. His dream is to play in the NFL.
That's amazing.
Kid's got a real future.
No, but Brian had a good point. He said he's not fast. The other kids are just really slow.
I mean, we should find out about the competition, right, Joel?
How awesome is that?
Come on.
Money is on him. If he's 7 and he's this fast, imagine when he's 20.
And he's got dreams. All right, Jillian, thank you.
Yep.
On the streets of New York City today, Janice Dean is joining us. And Janice, for the most part, things have stopped.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, some of that snow and ice, unfortunately, is in New England, but let's take a look at the maps. Still cold here in New York City, so some of the snow is sticking around. 35 right now, 26 in Cleveland. It is 5 currently in Minneapolis, so it's cold across much of the country. And there's the lingering storm across the Great Lakes and New England. Still a mixture of rain and some sleet and some snow, so we'll watch for that. But otherwise, most of it is done. Now,